Red Bull has just revealed brand new images from Abu Dhabi, and these images could completely destroy Lando Norris championship hopes in a single decision from the FIA. What these images show is so serious that the FIA has already activated a disciplinary review, and insiders say a heavy sanction is now more likely than ever. McLaren is facing the biggest tension of the entire season, and engineers are scrambling because if the FIA confirms an off-track advantage, the championship standings will be rewritten overnight. Stay with us because this twist could explode into the biggest scandal of the year, and subscribe to the channel now so you do not miss the next update as the FIA prepares its ruling. The circuit at Yas Marina has seen drama before, but nothing quite like this. The moment Red Bull's engineering team released the data package, everything shifted. Their motion-activated tracking footage captured Norris at turn 9 cutting across the outer white line, and telemetry now confirms there was no drop in delta time. In a championship-deciding race, that data point alone could trigger a seismic shift. It is not just the footage that is damning, it is the complete absence of any attempt by Norris to yield the position back, something required under Article 27.3 of the Sporting Code. Race engineers across the paddock spent Saturday night replaying lap 1 frame by frame. What began as casual curiosity turned into a full technical audit. The tire telemetry from Norris' outlap shows irregular surface load behavior, meaning that even before reaching turn 9, his track positioning was already borderline. By combining satellite overlays with live GPS mapping, Red Bull demonstrated that Norris maintained racing speed while gaining track position, a breach that becomes especially problematic if no radio call advised him to give it back. If McLaren did not instruct a correction, they may also face team-level responsibility. Behind closed doors, it is clear that Red Bull's decision to release the footage was not spontaneous. The data had been reviewed internally, analyzed by their simulation systems, and cleared through legal consultation. When the images went public, they were accompanied by time-stamped overlays and tire load distribution graphs, effectively weaponizing engineering as a legal strategy. This level of preparation signals more than just frustration, it signals a premeditated campaign to challenge the legality of Norris' race result. In doing so, Red Bull may be setting the stage for a larger movement within the FIA to tighten enforcement protocols heading into 2026. The reaction inside the FIA was immediate. Senior stewards have now formed a dedicated post-race integrity panel, pulling race directors, data analysts, and compliance auditors into an emergency review. According to multiple reports, the panel will assess not only the footage and car telemetry, but also radio communications between Norris and his engineer during the disputed sequence. If there is no indication that McLaren issued a hold or yield command, the case for deliberate advantage strengthens. The most critical evidence now lies in the data logs and audio archives from the McLaren pit wall. If they failed to instruct corrective action, the FIA may interpret that as complicity. While the outcome remains pending, the pressure on McLaren is extraordinary. A single post-race decision could strip Lando Norris of his first championship, not through a crash or a strategy error, but through a technicality tied to track limits. It is a brutal reminder of how Formula One demands perfection not only from drivers but from the entire operational machine. Even the smallest miscalculation in team communication, or a 1-second delay in instructing a position handback, can turn triumph into investigation. And if the FIA rules in favor of Red Bull, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix result may be reclassified in the official records. Max Verstappen, meanwhile, is not speaking publicly, but sources close to Red Bull indicate the Dutch driver is fully informed and quietly confident. Verstappen's pace was undeniable across the weekend, and telemetry from his car showed consistent gains during race simulations. His team knew they needed a miracle to overturn the standings after qualifying, but what they received was an opening not from the car, but from the rulebook. Now, every point, every overtake, and every millisecond matters. Verstappen could become champion once again, not because of fortune, but because his rivals failed to respect the most fundamental rules of the sport. Fans, as expected, are divided. The Norris supporters see this as overreach, a desperate attempt to steal a championship from a young driver finally at the peak of his form. Red Bull loyalists argue it is about fairness and consistency. If the FIA is serious about upholding regulations, then consequences must follow violations. Social media is already ablaze with slow-motion breakdowns, onboard comparisons, and expert takes from former drivers. But beyond all the noise, the decision now rests solely with the FIA. And when the verdict comes, it will not just reshape the season, it will redefine what is allowed in Formula One's most scrutinized moments. The FIA's investigation has uncovered what could be one of the most controversial moments of the 2025 season. At the heart of the issue is the illegal off-track maneuver executed by Norris at a critical point in the race. The data released by Red Bull, which includes high-resolution satellite overlays and GPS-synced lap traces, shows a clear breach of Article 33.3. This article enforces that a driver must rejoin the track safely and without gaining any lasting advantage. But Norris, in his maneuver, not only re-entered aggressively, he failed to yield the advantage he secured. The FIA now sees this as more than a racing incident. It's a potential sporting infringement that, in the context of a title decider, takes on enormous gravity. McLaren's defense, at this point, rests on two fragile pillars: that Norris lost no meaningful advantage and that no radio instruction was necessary. But telemetry betrays this claim. Speed trace comparisons show that Norris carried a higher exit velocity through turn 9 after his off-track moment, giving him momentum that ultimately allowed him to defend against both Ferrari drivers and extend a gap over Verstappen. In post-race analysis, Red Bull identified that lap as the moment Verstappen lost the window for an undercut strategy. The consequences were not limited to Norris, they reshaped the tactical landscape for multiple teams. That transforms this from a track limits violation to a competitive distortion. Adding to the controversy is the timing of the evidence submission. Red Bull waited until after the podium ceremony to reveal their findings, a move that McLaren has described as tactically aggressive. However, FIA regulations permit post-race reviews up to 96 hours after the event, particularly when new evidence is presented. And what Red Bull unveiled was not speculative. It was forensic. The heat mapping on Norris' right rear tire during the corner sequence indicated lateral forces inconsistent with legal cornering radius. These microdata points are exactly the kind of precision the FIA now uses to substantiate rule violations, and McLaren knows it. Inside the FIA headquarters in Geneva, the mood is described as clinical. The investigation team, now composed of stewards from 3 different Grand Prix locations this season, is focusing not just on driver action, but also team protocol. Did McLaren instruct Norris to correct? Did they even flag the incident in real time? Or did they allow it to pass unaddressed in the hope that it would be overlooked by race control? The communication logs are being audited minute by minute. In a sport where timing is everything, a 6-second delay in team response could now carry the weight of a championship. And the implications go even further. If Norris is found guilty of breaching re-entry protocol without giving back position or time, the penalty is not symbolic. It could involve a post-race time addition or even disqualification, depending on how the FIA interprets the competitive impact. For a driver leading in the standings, this is not just about Abu Dhabi. It could strip the title itself. And if that happens, Verstappen becomes the direct beneficiary, an outcome that would not only rewrite the records but ignite a fan war between two of the sport's most passionate supporter bases. Meanwhile, Verstappen's camp remains outwardly silent, but internally focused. Sources close to Red Bull confirm that the team has already run title scenarios based on possible FIA rulings. They have war-gamed outcomes in which Verstappen finishes second but is elevated to champion through Norris penalty. In one scenario, a 10-second addition would place Norris behind Verstappen in the final standings. In another, a full disqualification would remove Norris points entirely. Either would be enough for Verstappen to reclaim the championship, not by pace on Sunday, but by rulebook enforcement on Monday. This is the dark edge of modern Formula One, where every pixel of footage, every bit of tire degradation data, and every word from a race engineer becomes evidence in a legal chess match. McLaren now walks a razor's edge. A single FIA ruling could invalidate an entire year's effort. And as for Verstappen? He has nothing to lose and everything to gain. The FIA has begun hearings, the evidence has been tabled, and the entire grid is watching. There are no more laps to run. Now, it's a race against regulations, and only the stewards hold the checkered flag. The spotlight may be on Norris and the FIA, but under the surface, the engineering battle between Red Bull and McLaren in Abu Dhabi was nothing short of extraordinary. Red Bull arrived at Yas Marina with a clearly restructured aero profile on the RB21. Their new rear wing design, thinner in profile but generating sharper downforce peaks in medium-speed corners, was tailored specifically for Sector 2, a segment where Verstappen was consistently quicker than anyone else in both qualifying simulations and long-run data. The setup was aggressive, tailored for top-end speed without compromising traction, and it paid dividends. Verstappen was extracting over 0.2 per lap from Norris in identical fuel trims during the FP2 race simulations. McLaren, on the other hand, had pursued a high-rake philosophy for Norris' car, banking on maximizing rotation into low-speed turns and achieving better traction onto the back straight. But here's where engineering complexity turns into a gamble. The problem wasn't in their calculations, it was in the track evolution. The grip level at Yas Marina increased faster than forecasted. As the asphalt rubbered in, McLaren's setup, initially optimal, began to over-rotate under throttle. Norris struggled particularly at turn 11 and turn 14, where rear-end instability forced corrective steering inputs and minor time losses on exit. These fractions added up, and Verstappen's RB21, more balanced and planted, became lethal over long stints. Telemetry comparisons from FP2 revealed something even more alarming. Verstappen was hitting higher minimum speeds in corners where both cars should have been equally matched on mechanical grip alone. The only explanation: Red Bull's suspension tuning had been perfectly calibrated to the surface evolution. By reducing rear rebound and introducing a new hydraulic balancing ratio between front and rear dampers, the RB21 kept the rear tires within their thermal window, a crucial factor under the Yas Marina heat. Norris McLaren, on the other hand, was experiencing minor but consistent thermal degradation on the rear left, exactly where Verstappen was punishing him most. And then came the radios. During Norris' long run, his engineer reported Delta 3, lower than expected. That was a coded message indicating that Norris was losing time relative to projected stint data. The response from Norris was frustrated: "This doesn't feel like what we ran in the sim." That's key. It points to a mismatch between simulation environment and real-world track conditions. Meanwhile, Verstappen's radio was ice cold. His engineer only said, "DRS behaving as predicted. No temp spikes. Continue push." That's the difference between driving a car within its design envelope and trying to wrestle a machine out of its limitations. But the most telling figure came from fuel-corrected lap time deltas. Verstappen's medium tire long run in FP2 averaged 1 minute 26.4 with minimal variation. Norris? His average was 1 minute 26.9 with over 0.3 of fluctuation per lap. In Formula One, where championships are decided by decimals, that inconsistency matters. Especially when you factor in that Verstappen ran his simulations in slightly warmer conditions, suggesting even more resilience in Red Bull's overall cooling and power deployment package. Reliability, performance, predictability: the RB21 was doing everything it was designed to do. McLaren's engineers were caught on the back foot. They began altering wing angles and even tested a new brake duct configuration in the final 10 minutes of FP2. That's a sign of reactive thinking, of scrambling to close a gap that the wind tunnel said shouldn't exist. When that happens, you are not in control of the weekend anymore. You are chasing shadows. And with the weight of an FIA investigation looming, every engineering adjustment becomes another variable in a situation already spinning out of strategic control. What Verstappen's team delivered in Abu Dhabi was more than just pace. It was an execution masterclass. From the CFD revisions on airflow separation to tire wear projections that aligned almost exactly with FP2 telemetry, the RB21 wasn't just a race car, it was a surgical instrument. And in this kind of pressure scenario, where off-track investigations collide with on-track perfection, that engineering superiority could end up deciding not only a race but a world title.